The year was 2187, and the sky over Lira -7 had turned the color of bruised copper. From the cracked balcony of her family's weather-beaten habdome, 24-year-old Lira Voss watched the first Dravakian warship descend like a black needle through the clouds. It was beautiful in the way only something designed to end you could be: silent, perfect, inevitable. Lira -7 was a forgotten mining colony on the edge of human space, rich in the rare mineral trilithium that made faster-than-light engines possible. For 2 centuries, the people here had scraped a living from red dust and stubborn hope. Now the Dravakian Imperium had come to take the trilithium, and they never negotiated. Lira's father had died in the first orbital strike 3 days earlier. Her mother had followed when the dome's air recycler failed under bombardment ash. Lira was alone now, armed only with a scavenged pulse rifle, a half-charged power cell, and the stubborn refusal to die quietly. She had taken shelter in the old observatory on Mount Calyx, a pre-collapse structure whose great telescope had once searched for Earth. The building was half-ruined, but its thick ferrocrete walls still stood. From the cracked dome, she could see the entire valley where the Dravakian ground forces were landing. They came down in perfect formation, tall 7-foot figures in obsidian armor that drank the sunlight. Their faces were hidden behind angular helmets that reflected the burning colony like dark mirrors. The Dravakians were not monsters in the human sense. They were simply efficient. Their empire spanned 30 systems, and they had never lost a war. Lira sighted down her rifle and waited for a target worth the single shot she could afford. That was when she saw him. He moved differently from the others. Where the rest marched in lockstep, he walked as though the gravity of Lira 7 offended him. His armor was the same matte black, but faint silver lines traced across it like veins of starlight. His helmet was off, tucked beneath one arm, revealing a face that was almost human: high cheekbones, a sharp jaw, skin the color of moonlit steel. Only the faint bioluminescent patterns that pulsed beneath his skin, and the second set of smaller eyes above the first, marked him as alien. He stopped in the middle of the ruined main street and looked straight up at the observatory, as though he had known she was watching all along. Lira's finger tightened on the trigger. He raised one empty hand, palm forward, the universal gesture for peace among a dozen species. Then he spoke, and the translator bead every human child had implanted at birth rendered his words in calm, accented English. "I am Commander Kael'thas Vorin of the 3rd Imperial Legion. I seek the one who killed 4 of my soldiers with a mining laser yesterday. If that is you, I would speak before more blood is shed." Lira's heart hammered. She had killed those 4 soldiers, yes, when they tried to drag children from a collapsing school dome. She had not expected anyone to notice 4 dead among thousands. She considered shooting him anyway. One less commander was one less commander, but something in his voice, steady, almost weary, made her hesitate. She stepped out onto the balcony where he could see her. "If you want to talk, drop your weapons and come up alone." A pause. Then, to her amazement, he unbuckled the plasma lance from his back and let it fall. The other soldiers shifted uneasily, but none raised a weapon against their commander. "I will come," he said. 10 minutes later, he stood inside the observatory's control room, dwarfing the human furniture. Up close, he smelled faintly of ozone and something like pine needles on a world that had never known trees. His 4 eyes studied her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "You are younger than I expected," he said. "You're bluer than I expected." She shot back. A flicker of something amusement crossed his face. "My species calls this coloration ash vert. It means born under dying stars. How poetic for people who blow up planets." His jaw tightened. "We do not enjoy it. Then why do it?" He looked out the cracked viewport toward the burning colony. "Because the Imperium is dying too. Our sun is collapsing. In 50 rotations it will go supernova. Trilithium is the only element that can stabilize a stellar engine large enough to move an entire system. We need what is under your soil, or 30 billion Dravakians perish." Lira laughed bitterly. "So you murder 2 million humans to save 30 billion of your own." Congratulations on your superior math. Kael'thas turned back to her. I did not come to justify the war. I came to offer you a choice. What choice? Surrender or die faster? Live, he said simply. Come with me. I will take you off-world before the final bombardment. You will be safe. She stared at him. Why? He hesitated the first time he had seemed uncertain, because when I reviewed the colony's defense logs, I saw what you did at the school. 4 soldiers dead, 12 children alive. I recognized something in the way you fought. My sister died the same way, protecting younglings during a rebellion on our outer moons. I thought perhaps you deserved better than to burn with this world. Lyra's throat ached. She wanted to spit in his face. She wanted to believe him. Both impulses warred inside her until she felt dizzy. I'm not leaving my planet to die alone, she said finally. Then I will stay with you until it does, he answered, and the words so soft she almost missed them. The next 3 days were surreal. Kael'thas ordered his legion to hold position in the valley. He told them he was interrogating a high-value prisoner. In reality, he spent every hour with Lira in the observatory, helping her reinforce the doors, sharing rationing the last of the food packs, speaking of things soldiers were not supposed to speak about. He told her about Dravakian sky cities that floated on magnetic currents, about music played on instruments of frozen plasma, about the way his people's skin glowed brighter when they were happy. She told him about earth lullabies her mother used to sing, about the smell of rain on red dust after a rare storm, about how humans planted gardens even when they knew the soil would be glassed within a year. On the second night, power failed across the colony. They lit the observatory with emergency glow rods that cast long shadows across the telescope's great lens. Lira sat on the floor with her back against the wall. Kael'thas sat opposite, knees drawn up like any exhausted human soldier. I keep thinking about those children you saved, he said. If I take you away, maybe someday you could teach them again. I'm not a teacher, I'm a mineral surveyor. You are whatever you decide to become when the war ends. She looked at him then. Really looked. The bioluminescence under his skin had shifted to a softer violet. Among Dravakians, she had learned, that meant calm or sorrow, or the records were unclear. Why are you really doing this? She whispered. You're risking everything. Your legion could mutiny. The Imperium could strip your rank, your name. Because the first time you pointed that rifle at me, he said, you didn't shoot. And I realized I have never, in 15 years of war, met an enemy who hesitated. He reached out slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, and brushed a strand of dust-caked hair from her cheek. His fingers were warmer than she expected. Something in Lyra's chest cracked open like a geode. She kissed him. It was clumsy, desperate, tasting of recycled air and impending death. He froze for a heartbeat, then kissed her back with a reverence that made her shake. When they pulled apart, his skin had flared bright indigo, the color, he would later tell her, of first love among his people. They did not sleep that night. Dawn of the 4th day brought the final order from the Imperium. If the colony did not surrender the trilithium mines by dusk, the planet would be cracked open by kinetic rods from orbit. Kael'thas stood at the viewport, fists clenched so tightly the silver lines on his armor flickered like lightning. I can stall them 1 more day, he said. After that, even my authority ends. Lira came to stand beside him. There's another way. The old mining tunnels under Mount Calyx. They run 30 kilometers west to the dry ocean bed. My father mapped them before he died. If we collapse the main shafts behind us, your fleet won't get more than 10% of the trilithium before the stellar engine deadline. He stared at her. You would help us take what we came for? I would help 30 billion people not die, and I would keep 2 million ghosts from having to welcome any more. Together they worked through the day. Kael'thas used his command codes to redirect excavation teams under the pretense of securing the mines faster. Lira guided them through the human maps, showing where to place the charges that would seal the richest veins forever. By late afternoon, the tunnels were rigged. Only one task remained. Someone had to stay behind to trigger the final sequence manually. The remote signal wouldn't penetrate the mineral shielding. They both knew who it had to be. "I'll do it," Lira said. "No," his voice was iron. "I came to destroy this world. Let me be the one who saves what's left of it." Tears stung her eyes. "If you die here, your people will brand you a traitor. Then let them. My name will still be on the stellar engine that saves them, even if they spit when they say it." She kissed him again, harder this time, memorizing the taste of him. When she pulled away, she pressed her father's old survey tablet into his hands. "There's a colony ship hidden in the dry docks at Port Halloway. My mother's access codes are still active. Take the children I saved. Take whoever you can. Go. And you? I'll hold the observatory. When your fleet sees the mines collapse, they'll glass this mountain to be sure. I'll make sure they think the resistance died with it." For a long moment he only looked at her, 4 eyes shining with something too deep for tears. Then he touched his forehead to hers, the Dravakian gesture of eternal bonding. "Live, Lira Voss," he whispered. "Live long enough to forgive me." He left at twilight. Lira watched from the observatory as shuttles rose from the valley, carrying the last survivors, fewer than 200, but 200 more than there would have been. She saw Kael'thas's personal gunship lift last, its running lights blinking once, a promise or goodbye. She waited until the sky was full of stars again. Then she triggered the charges. The mountain roared. For a moment the observatory shook so violently she thought the dome would collapse. When the dust settled, the trilithium veins were buried under 1 billion tons of rock. The Dravakian fleet, furious but pragmatic, declared the world a loss and withdrew to search for another source before their sun died. Alara 7 burned for 3 more days. On the 4th day, a small human freighter landed among the ruins. Its pilot, a grizzled woman with miner's lungs, had received an anonymous message with coordinates and a single line: "The children are at Port Halloway. Tell them Teacher Lira sends her love." The pilot found Lira half buried in the observatory rubble, 1 arm broken, lungs seared by ash but alive. She had crawled into the old telescope's maintenance shaft when the glassing began. The mirrored surface had reflected most of the heat. They carried her out under a sky no longer copper, but black and clear and full of unfamiliar stars. Years later, in a refugee camp on Proxima Centauri b, children gathered around an elderly human woman with silver in her hair and burn scars on her arms. They begged for the story again, the one about the alien soldier who stayed behind so they could live. Lira would smile and tell them how Commander Kael'thas Vorin became the most decorated traitor in Dravakian history, how he piloted the colony ship with the last of the trilithium to stabilize their dying sun, how, in the final broadcast before the stellar engine ignited, he spoke not of victory, but of a human woman who taught him that mercy was stronger than any weapon. And sometimes, on nights when the New World's twin moons rose full and bright, Lira would see a pattern of indigo light moving across the sky, brief, impossibly distant, but unmistakable. A Dravakian gunship, running dark, blinking its lights once, just once. Enough to say, "I lived long enough to forgive you too."